went to Virginia for Labor Day weekend, really needed to get out of the city. I just had so much weighing on my heart lately. To follow up with my last video that I recorded with my friend the Frank Friar, we sat down and discussed the sexual abuse crisis that's been going on in the Catholic Church, and I didn't realize how much it would affect me, but it really has. So for anyone who doesn't know my background, I was born and raised in a Catholic family. We would go to Mass, say the Rosary every day, do all the sacraments, First Communion, baptism, confirmation, all that stuff. And for me at the time, it was kind of a thing where, okay, this is what my family does, this is what my parents do, this is what I need to do, this is just what we have to do. There was this church that I used to go to back when I lived in Virginia, St. Timothy's in Chantilly, Virginia. And at the time, I would go to Mass on Sunday or Saturday nights and leave right after receiving communion because I needed to beat the traffic out of the parking lot, which is actually a YouTuber named Lizzie Answers who recently converted to Catholicism, and she was Protestant. She made a really good video called Things I Still Hate About Catholicism, and it was just super honest, and I really agree with her. How there's such a lack of community, there's a lack of a lot of things that I wish I could see in the Catholic Church happen. And she said how it's sad how people leave right after communion, and I'm like, I used to be one of those people. I didn't even really know what I believed in. I would just kind of go because I needed to go, check it off the list, do what you need to do kind of thing. And as I've gotten older, so this is back when I lived in Virginia, moved to New York City, had, I would say, a very profound conversion experience. And actually, when I was in Virginia this weekend, went back to the same church that I used to go to, and I would leave right after receiving communion because it was just like, you go to Mass, you do what you need to do, go home, everything's all good. No, like, I didn't even really know what I really believed in. And so went back to that same church, and there's all new priests there now, and one of the priests was so amazing, and his homily really struck me, and he was super passionate, and he was saying how, well, the gospel reading was about when the scribes and the Pharisees observed Jesus' disciples eating with unclean hands, and they questioned, why do you not wash your hands? Because it was the tradition, like, you need to wash your hands and purify yourself, and it was the tradition. And they were saying, why do you not follow the tradition of elders? And Jesus' response to them was, you follow tradition, you disregard God's commandment, but you cling to human traditions. The people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. So think about it. It's like, we think we're such great Catholics, go to Mass every Sunday, listen to the gospel readings, and I've always heard that it said if you go to Catholic Mass however many times, you'll hear the whole Bible read to you, pretty much. And I'm thinking to myself, but do we actually take time in our personal lives to cultivate a relationship with God? Or do we just go to Mass every Sunday thinking, check off the boxes, okay, do what I need to do, I can hear the whole Bible if I go to Mass every Sunday? I feel like that's not enough, and I was raised in that mentality of, this is what you need to do, and the Catholic Church is so biblically based, and yeah, you hear the whole Bible. I'm like, really though? If you just passively sit in Mass and listen, and don't even listen. I used to not even listen to the readings, I used to not listen to the homilies, I would just kind of sit there like dead weight, like an extra body, just sitting in a pew, checking it off my box. And then also the second reading was from the book of James, which is one of my favorite lines, is be doers of the word, not hearers only. And it causes me to reflect on my life of sitting in Mass every Sunday, thinking I'm listening, but am I actually applying this to my personal life? Am I living out what I'm hearing? Am I going out into the world and proclaiming the gospel? No, I was literally just sitting like a dead weight in a pew, checking it off my list of things to do. And so I think many of us are raised in that mentality, and it's really important to make our faith our own instead of just clinging to the human traditions, as the gospel reading said. And so the priest said, he really stressed the importance of growing in our relationship, knowing our faith truly. He was explaining how there's so many parish activities. There's RCIA, which is starting September 15th. So those of you who don't know, if you're interested in learning anything about the Catholic faith, there's RCIA classes, which is the Rite of Christian Initiation for adults. And so you'll learn anything you need to know, He said we should actually learn about what our faith teaches, not the childish, juvenile, oh, God loves you, butterflies and rainbows and everything's great kind of thing, because that's not enough to sustain an adult faith. And I think many people ditch their faith after their juvenile Sunday school background of learning about their faith and who they think God is and what they think the faith teaches. And you know, it's important to actually learn what our faith actually is. Which is, I guess, when I moved to New York and I got older and I really started questioning things and thinking about things and doing reading and researching heavily, really thinking for myself. Not everyone does that on their own. They just kind of go to their Sunday schools and then be like, you know what, this is juvenile, I don't need this, God doesn't even exist, and that kind of thing, without really digging deeper. So, also another really good point he made during his homily was how, in light of the recent scandals in the Catholic Church, he said him and the other priests have addressed it in the previous week's homilies. It was super refreshing for me to hear that he was actually addressing these problems, and he was saying him and the priests were thinking, where do we go from here? What do we do from here? And he said that on Wednesday nights they would be offering a holy hour in Stations of the Cross, basically in solidarity for the victims and to pray and to just all come together. And he was saying how basically what we've been going through in the Catholic Church is like Christ being crucified, which really struck me because there was a point where my sister called me on the phone crying, saying, Melanie, we were both crying and we're like, what do we do? What can we do? Where do we go from here? And she was saying how basically we're like Mary Magdalene, like we're looking at Christ being crucified all over again, and what do we do? We're just watching the pain. It's like we're watching the nails and the crown of thorns being crushed deeper and deeper. That's literally what it feels like, the pain. I've been really thinking about this a lot, and it's been weighing on me heavily, and you know, feeling, where do we go from here? What do we do? How do we heal from this? Just all these things, you know, what are we to do? Well, my friend the Frank Friar, in our video, he mentioned how priests should be doing public penance and public acts of penance, and he said, you know, if you just want to yell at a priest, just message me. I thought that was so great, and it's like priests should be standing up and being like, you know, we're here for you, we're together in this, we're listening, we're speaking out against it, we're standing up for the truth instead of just brushing it under the rug like so many do. And it's like, we don't know what to say, we don't know what to do. And so public acts of penance. And so when I went back to this old church that I used to go to in Virginia with all new priests, hearing this priest say, you know, me and the priests are going to be available on Wednesday nights, we're all going to be here, anyone's welcome to join, we're going to be doing Stations of the Cross, we're going to be basically walking through Christ crucified, and we're all going to be together, we're all going to pray together. And also something he mentioned was how so many people are raised in their faith with this idea that God is a harsh judge, not a loving father. He's saying how we all kind of grow up, you know, he was talking about the gospel reading of the Pharisees and the scribes saying, oh, you don't wash your hands, you're not, you know, why don't you follow the traditions of elders? And he was saying how a lot of us are raised like that, and we kind of do what we need to do, we follow the traditions, we go through the motions, but do we really stop to think about why are we doing the things we do? What do we actually believe in? Why are we following these traditions, you know? And he was saying how people would approach him to get their kids baptized, and they would come up to him after Mass and say, hey, we want to baptize our kid, and he would ask them why, and their response was, well, that's what we did, that's what our grandparents did, you know, it's just something we have to do. And he was like, no, that's not enough, like why, you know? We should actually start thinking about the reasons why we do the things we do instead of just blindly, oh, well, that's what our parents did, that's what, you know, in the gospel reading, the traditions of elders, thinking about these are just the traditions that we have to go through, going through the motions. And so that really spoke to me, and I actually went up to him after Mass and I was like, thank you so much for your whole homily, because it really spoke to me, because me as someone who would go through the motions and go to that same very church that he was speaking in and sit in the back row and then leave right after communion, and you know, but I'm just thinking, if there was a priest who gave a homily with his passion and his enthusiasm and his true, I could tell he's just super genuine and actually really cares. And so I was thinking to myself, I told him, I was like, I wish I would hear this homily back before, you know, when I was one of those people just following the traditions of the elders kind of thing. Basically, the whole idea is what the second reading was in the book of James is be doers of the word and not hearers only. So really inspires me to actually go out and like be doers and not just hearers. To not be passive in our faith and just sit there and think, oh, we're so good, we're listening. No, but what are you doing? What are we actually going out and doing with our faith and our lives? Just something to think about. Hope everyone has a great week. Thank you for listening to my rants about life as I stand in front of this Bank of America. Another thing is the priest said during his homily that when he was discussing with the other priests, what are we going to do? How can we heal? Where are we going to go from here regarding all the scandals? I really respect the fact that he said what we all need is a constant conversion experience. All of us. We need to just constantly have a conversion experience. He's like, go to confession, make sure, we all have to get our own lives in order. It's so easy for us to like point our fingers at other people, which is like, yeah, we should call other people out and hold other people accountable. We should also look within ourselves and think, how are we living up to the best potential that we personally can live up to, instead of constantly looking at other people who are falling short and pointing fingers at them. And he was saying how we need to have a constant conversion experience. That's even another thing. When I went up to him afterwards, I was like, I tell people that I've had a conversion experience even though I was always Catholic, still had a conversion experience.